I think of the word hood, I think of a person, a place, and perhaps even a thing. I'm Sir Creepsta, and welcome to Muhlenberg County Ghost Stories from the Hood. Tonight's tale of terror is entitled Footprints in the Snow, Skunk Ape, a Muhlenberg reboot. When telling the stories from the hood, let me be crystal clear. They don't always involve ghosts, demons, or anything remotely supernatural. There are those stories that dealt with worldly entities that were much more human-like. Two-footed creatures that seemingly roam the hood as well. Although I've shared several of these types of stories, there's one in particular that once again involved myself as well as my younger brother. It's one that terrified us so much as kids that after experiencing it firsthand, it will be months before we'll be caught dead outside after dark. And many years later, we still get cold chills just mentioning it to one another. So, sit back, relax, grab some snacks, and be terrified by yet another Muhlenberg County ghost story from the hood. Back in 1971, my brother and I were two young kids growing up in the hood. He was 8 and I was the 11-year-old big brother. To my brother and I, Central City appeared to have had two sides. There was a good side that as kids most of us were fortunate enough to have been a part of. But there were also the early, dark, and creepy side that would hide its ugly face until night or early morning. For weeks leading up to the event that I'm about to talk about, there was a strange feeling in the air. It felt as if something or someone was lurking in the shadows, just waiting on the right time to show its ugly presence to us. Believe me, this wouldn't take long. But before I go any further, please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on the bell icon so that you'll be notified each and every time I drop a brand new video. The house that we lived in at the time was located about 100 feet from the railroad tracks that passed right through the hood. There weren't any street lights near them, so at night you couldn't see anything on the tracks or near the tracks, other than the lights of the train engines whenever it passed through. The weather had started to warm up, so I'd find myself spending many a night outside on our front porch. It was a concrete porch, so I usually would find myself lying on it, soaking up the coolness that it provided my body with. While lying there, I'd often hear the sounds of animals either walking or running back and forth up the tracks. Rarely being able to see any of them because of the total darkness. This pattern would go on the entire summer, whenever I found myself outside on the porch. By fall, the sounds had intensified so much that they had begun to sound creepy whenever I heard them while I was outside. Because Central City was so small and my family was so large, there was always a relative or two living nearby. In this particular story, the nearby relative happened to be my great-grandmother, who lived directly across the tracks from us. Granny and my mother would often see each other, usually on a daily basis. Either it was Granny over at our house or it was Mom over at Granny's. By now, fall had come and gone, and winter had set in. On one winter's night, Granny made a later than usual visit to our house. I was the one that heard her knocking at the door, and when I went to open it, she looked right past me and began asking for Mom. The two of them went into the kitchen, and I could barely hear her and Mama talking. The conversation was short, but to the point. Although I wasn't able to make out everything that was said, I was able to make out the part about the wild man. Granny said they had allegedly been spotted near Depoy. Immediately, my heart started racing as the feeling of intense fear overtook my entire body. I then went into my brother's bedroom and told him what I overheard Mama and Granny talking about. But however, being as young as my brother was at the time, he really didn't quite understand what I was telling him about the supposed sighting of the wild man. Although my brother had a lot of questions pertaining to the subject, it really didn't hit him the same way that it hit me. Except that he really wanted to know just how far away Depoy was from us. Because I happened to play a little league baseball down around that area of the county, I was able to assure him that Depoy wasn't close to all where we lived and that we were safe. So finally, around 10 p.m. or so, we both fell into a deep sleep. My dad was an avid hunter at that time, and he owned about 3 or 4 hound dogs that he used whenever he decided to go hunting. The dog pen in which he housed his dogs in was located on the side of the house closest to me and my brother's bedroom. For the most part, they weren't noisy dogs at all, considering their breed. But on this particular night, that would all change. I can't recall the exact time that the loud, constant barking started. All I remember is waking up to my mom asking my dad to do something about those loud-ass dogs. By now I had gotten up and I was sitting on the side of the bed, and I saw my daddy getting dressed and then grabbing his 12-gauge shotgun out of the gun cabinet, and minutes later heading out the front door. He wasn't gone long, as the dogs seemed to immediately stop barking once they heard my daddy's voice telling them to quiet down. Once Dad had gotten back inside, I overheard him telling Mama that the only thing he saw was all of the snow that had fallen overnight, and they didn't know what caused his dogs to have gotten so stirred up the way that they had. Hearing this brought a huge sigh of relief all over me and my brother, who by now had woke up also. And not long after hearing this, my brother and I dozed off again into a deep sleep. As soon as daylight hit, I was wide awake, and then it suddenly hit me that Daddy had told Mama that it had snowed. So out of anticipation of seeing just how much snow had actually fallen, I pulled back the curtains in front of our bedroom window, and to my disbelief, what I saw filled my body with complete and utter fear. For leading up to the window beside our bed was a pair of the largest footprints I had ever seen. At the time, I wore a size 10, and I could clearly see that my shoes could have easily fit inside the tracks outside my window, with plenty of room to spare. My brother and I shared bunk beds at the time, and I recall shaking him like crazy to wake him up and see the huge footprints that were left in the snow. Once my brother was fully awake, he too saw them, and like me, was scared to death at the mere sight of them. We both jumped up and ran into our parents' room, looking for our dad to tell him about our discovery. Dad was already dressed and was about to head off to work, but upon hearing our story, he immediately stopped in his tracks and grabbed the shotgun that he left beside the front door. He then quickly ran out the door to check upon his dogs. To his surprise, not only were there large footprints beside our window, they were all over the side of the house. He then walked around the back side of our house to see if he could tell where the tracks had come from, but because of the large amount of snow that had fallen, he was unable to do so. So he turned around and came back inside the house. Although my dad was unable to determine who or what had made the extremely large footprints, that wasn't the case for my brother and I. For there was not a doubt in our minds that the footprints that had been made in the snow had been made by the exact same wild man that Granny had told Mom about earlier that night. And to this very day, there's not a doubt in my mind that the offspring of the creature still roams the woods and the hoods of Muhlenberg County. So, if by chance you're in Central City, and whether it be dirt or snow, and you happen to stumble upon a pair of the largest footprints you've ever seen before, bear in mind that they too could belong to the Skunk Ape of Muhlenberg County, paying the hood another little visit. I'm Sir Creepsta, and until next time, stay terrified.